Thank you, David. Our speaker today is DeMarcus Thomas Brown. DeMarcus has a strong passion for community enrichment and reinvestment, especially for marginalized families in their respective communities. He is currently the regional director at Good Dads, and he is also the chairman of the Columbia chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. DeMarcus has vast experience in leadership and management across many industries and was previously the managing director for Into Action and the director for the Recovery Support and Reentry Opportunity Center, ROC, in Columbia, Missouri. He currently serves with the Boone County Overdose Response Coalition, the Central Missouri Recovery Coalition, and the Mid-Missouri Crisis Intervention Team Council. He is a chaplain for the Columbia Police Department and is credentialed by the International Conference of Police Chaplains. He serves on the University of Missouri School of Medicine's Echo Hub team and is a board member of the Missouri Credentialing Board. DeMarcus graduated from Columbia College with his master's in business administration and is a doctoral candidate at Fuller Theological Seminary. He is an ordained minister who also serves as a founding pastor of Confluence Church. Welcome, DeMarcus.
Thank you so much, Kathy. You did not have to read all of that, so I appreciate you so much. And so I must first apologize and then introduce myself. But that I was thinking this was a question and answer kind of panel situation, and so but I can speak about the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and what we have going on and the heart behind it. As I say, I don't need much prodding to speak. I just need more prodding to be succinct and to be time efficient. As they say, if you ask me to speak for 10 minutes, I'll need 2 weeks. If you ask me to speak for 2 hours, just give me 5 minutes prep. So, but I have with me here also is Marcus Richardson. He is a Reverend Marcus Richardson. He is the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And as Kathy stated, I am the chairman of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and I masquerade as the treasurer as well. So, and so, Kathy, from our conversation, you just want me to talk about what we're doing, the inception of it here in Columbia, and just kind of a little about the Southern Christian Leadership Conference as a whole?
Yes, please.
Okay. Um, so the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which I'm sure some of us are aware, was started in 1957 by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was the organization and currently is the organization that he actually started and was propelling. A lot of times people will confuse that with the NAACP or even with SNCC, but the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was what was started by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it was started in Atlanta, Georgia, to actually bring those together to work on the social issues and ails that were going on in Atlanta, Georgia, at the time. And so, as we will remember, a lot of the what happened in Montgomery and Alabama, and then what was going on in Mississippi, a lot of those were combined movements. But then Reverend Dr. King decided, hey, we need something that's going to bring momentum to what's going on in Georgia. They had to use a different vehicle, and they felt that the NAACP was because of what was going on in Montgomery and what had happened in Mississippi, and even some of the outworkings, they felt the NAACP had become so alienated that they needed an organization that could actually be included with the white brothers and sisters who wanted to be involved in the struggle, right? And in the fight for social justice, for equity, for inclusion, for parity and those things in Georgia. And they did a lot early on. Obviously, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference started to suffer after the killing of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And there has just been a lot of just ins and outs of the movement. And so what we saw fit Reverend Marcus Richardson, myself, and others have saw fit to say we need a mechanism that can partner with and bring unity around the things that are going on in central Missouri and Missouri as a whole, and we can lift the arms, if you will, and partner with the NACP and work with the other organizations that have the same mindset, like mindset on community enrichment, on equitable thriving and flourishing, and accountability and advocacy on our government agencies and the different agencies that say they work for individuals, but we have seen ails in comparison to how they work with one demographic compared to another. And so bringing that entity in to partner with. And so one of the things that we did early on is we formed a committee to come together and say, do we need this? Right? Because we could say we think we need this, and there could be those in the community say we don't need this, but the overarching and just unanimous response was yes, we need another agency like SCLC here in Columbia. We checked with Mary Ratliff. Mary Ratliff is one of the queens, if you will, in our community. And we said, Mary, this is what is on our heart to do. What do you think? And she said, I'll tell you what, whatever y'all need, you let me know, because this will be something that will empower and help propel the NAACP as well. We checked with those like Reverend David Ballinger, the Russell Freeman, Apostle Russell Freeman that's here. We spoke with different ones, um, Race Matters friends, and talk with moms and men. We talk with the different agencies that are in, like I said, like-minded in similar fashion and fight. And again, it was a unanimous, what can we do? How can we be involved? So in a nutshell, that's kind of how we began. What we actually was surprised about is that as we looked at the SCLC, there's never been a chapter in Columbia, Missouri. And really, Missouri as a whole, it's bleak. But yet, our different activists and advocates have been involved and fashioned around this organization. But there's never been a foothold in the central part of the state. Kansas City has a chapter, and St. Louis had a chapter in the late '80s, and then it just disappeared. So we were amazed that there had not been, I mean, for crying out loud, Missouri's on the NAACP watch list, or no travel list, honestly, since it's been on there since 2015. And so we were amazed. It was like, why has this not been a focus for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference? And sometimes you stop asking why and you start doing, right? And you say, hey, well, we're gonna bring it here. So we talked to the national president. DeMarc Liggins now is the national president. It was Dr. Charles Steele, who had been president for the of the SCLC for about 20 years. We went down to Atlanta. Reverend Richardson went down to Atlanta, went to the convening there for the national, talked to them about what's going on in Columbia and what's going on in Central Missouri, talked to them about the elements that we see that we are worried about, the negligence, if you will, of community enrichment and the things that are going on in our communities that are overlooked and untouched, the lack of representation when it comes to solution making. And so we have half-baked, if not hazardous solutions that are supposed to actually bring help that bring hurt, because those who have the understanding and wherewithal are not consulted and are not at the table. And if they are brought to the table and they look like those who are underfoot, they usually are coming because they're paid by those who, so then they say what the ones that bring them to the table want them to say, not actually bringing solution that's going to bring a solve in the community. And so they were excited. And they were excited by our age. So we we were succession is a big deal, right? Succession plan is a big deal. So they were it was funny. They kept asking. So young about yeah, and we're not extravagantly young, but we are young. I'll claim it. I'm young. Reverend Richardson is not extravagantly young. I'm young. But I'm not yet 40. I'm 39. Reverend Richardson is above
Watch it,
40.
watch it.
He's not no, but they were excited because they said we could see a succession into reaching a younger generation, but also the energy, because I know some who are above 70 who have way more energy than some who are 20. And so trust and believe. I know those who have a work ethic out of this world, but they were excited that okay, we could see longevity here, with what's going on, in Central Missouri and Columbia, and with the chapter being there. So we did get their blessing, to bring the SCLC here, and then also with the proceedings of the next weekend, actually. So we make big the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.'s holiday. We make big, just what he meant. There's a lot of people who speak about him, for crying out loud. I think it was it the current president elect that tried to use. I mean, people take his words. I'm like, did you? So is that the only speech you ever heard him talk about? Let's talk about the letter from Birmingham, Alabama. Let's talk about the drum major speech. Let's talk about what he said about the great nightmare after. But we love to take his words, and so what we also want, hope to be, and continue to strive to be, and because we were doing this before the SCLC coming, is to hold accountability to his message, and so that people can't just cherry pick what they want from Dr. King. But if they're gonna quote him, then they must act in the ethic of what he lived for, in the tapestry, if you will, of interconnectivity, and that if something, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and that we cannot be who we are meant to be if someone else is not thriving and being who they meant to be, and we all have to rise together. So if something is ailing a community here, this should be important and ailing for all of us until we see a fix there. And so they love to cherry pick. And so what we are doing also is making big of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his message, and holding that, because we are the organization he created. And so we'll have a Friday night, just a musical and welcome night. We'll have Saturday. That's going to be our summit day. So Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon is going to be more of a learning and education. We'll talk about community enrichment. I've started to trademark. There'll be those when we come into April. Well, before April, when on the campaign trail, you guys will hear those of, campaigning for mayor, campaigning for school board, that will say things of community enrichment. I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, that is because they had a conversation with myself. They have not been talking about community enrichment, nor do they know the tenets of community enrichment. But I've been telling them, if you want to see solutions, then you must look to community enrichment. Stop talking about violence. Talk about enrichment. It's a root cause issue, not a fruit issue. Pick all the trees you want off an apple tree. Guess what? You still gonna have an apple tree. But if you cut the root, you will not have an apple tree. And people have been talking about apples, and they've not been talking about the root of why the tree is there. Community enrichment goes to the root of why we have the fruit that's coming and ailing. And so hold those accountable, Muleskinners, as they talk, as you have the forums, ask them, okay, what are the tenets of community enrichment? And where'd you find out about this? And how have you seen this implemented? And you'll get some well, we so I'll give y'all that arsenal of weaponry. But we are looking at, so we will talk about that during the summit. We'll talk about community enrichment. We'll talk about, from pew to purpose, how those who have been historically in churches and mechanisms, we cannot forget, regardless of our spirituality or our understanding, that a lot, our hospitals, our colleges, our programs have come from faith-based communities. We wouldn't have a Duke University. We would not have a Loyola University. We would not have a Pepperdine had it not been for those. We wouldn't have a Columbia College. We wouldn't have, we wouldn't have these institutions had it not been for those who had the foresight. Oberlin College in Ohio. You talk about those who were talking about the ills of slavery, and having blacks and whites go to school together. We wouldn't have those institutions if we did not have the church. And so again, doing pew to purpose, getting those who have kind of ailed from that and left that because the right thinks they own evangelicalism, and actually saying, hey, actually, you have a if you are in this, you should have an ear to social justice. It runs that way. You cannot segregate Christ from social justice. You cannot segregate the religious sector from doing work in your community. And if you have, then you have usurped a movement that did not start by you, that has been running for millennia before, and you cannot now come out with a new brand without checking with the old. And that's what the community, the computer purpose, and Reverend Richardson will handle that portion. He will be the one walking with this man. I think he was born in a Baptist church and and stayed. And so that's been fantastic. That partnership. And then we will have crossing over, which will be some of Reverend James Patterson, um, uh, Charles Stevenson, ones that have been around a little longer, who have seen the progressive work in the communities, especially Central Missouri, as it comes to social justice, as it comes to the civil rights movement and what we've walked through and seen. And they will actually pull on those who have been around longer than them to be able to see this progression. And so that'll be that morning session where it's, like I said, it's learning and conference. And then we'll have the banquet where we'll have awards. Named for after those. And so you guys are going to be the first ones. I think I can trust y'all with the secrets of who's going to be named. Y'all are hearing it first here of who these awards will be named after. But they're people that come from Columbia, and that they're posthumous, so they've since died. And they're and they did work in our community. And so Miss Sarah Bell Jackson, there will be an award in her name. Miss uh Wanda Faye
Wanda
Elbert,
Faye Albert. Yep.
Elbert. There will be an award in her name. We have also Miss Stella Johnson. There will be an award in her name. And then we'll have an award in the name of, he'll be the only one that's not posthumous, and that's Reverend David Ballinger. There will be an award in his name. And so we're giving credence to those who actually worked in and were tenants of community enrichment. They gave their lives, they gave their work and their intention to enriching a community. Miss Stella alone, I think she helped my mom get her GED, helped me learn to read when CPS was failing our whole community, honestly, and helped others. I think there's 4 generations that, if we had not had a Stella Johnson, would not even be literate, because she taught in CPS and said, this is not an institution that is upholding our demographic. And so I must exit to be able to prepare those to walk within the institution. And she did just that. And it has changed the trajectory of families across the board in Columbia, Missouri. And so there will be a lot of people there to honor these women and these men that have given their lives for social justice, for civil rights, for community impact, and who we will award them to. So that's the weekend we're doing. And then we'll tell everybody. Oh yeah, and Sunday. Thank you, Robert. Sunday we will have a gospel celebration, and we will do that at Log Providence. Log Providence is one of the oldest African American churches in Boone County. It's younger than Mount Celestial, but right there in line with Mount Celestial. So it's one of the oldest. Reverend David Ballinger is the pastor. He's been a pastor there for 40 years, which is unheard of. I don't know how he survives the boards and the business meetings, but he has. So he has been there for 40 years and has done a great work. And so we'll be out there. We'll do a lunch at 1. It's going to be fantastic. And then we'll have the gospel celebration there at 2:30, and that will be the completion to our portion. And we will implore those to go to NAACP on Monday, to go to the Battle Gardens, and to go to the NAACP celebration, and also to go to the city celebration that Monday night in honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so with all that, I love this save room for questions if there is room.
Yes, no, there's, you can tell us more if you need to, but if you'd like to take questions about this part that you've just told us, we'll do it right now.
Okay, sounds great.
David Mallory has his hand up.
Yes, thank you.
appreciate your presentation. Could you? I must admit, I'm very clueless on this topic as well as a lot of others. I'm interested in the four generations that you talked about being literate now because of the work of this lady. Could you fill me in on what you see the issues were originally? Why were certain people not being taught the way they should be taught? And what did she do differently that allowed those people to become literate, join society, if you will?
No, fantastic question, David. And yeah, so she was the best kept secret in Columbia, Missouri, in my opinion. So what Miss J did, and again, it was Stella Johnson. What she did was she bought a house on McBain Street between Broadway and Worley. There was a house sitting there, almost in the middle of that section of McBain. And she bought the house not to live in it, but to have her institute. So she had Mr. and Mrs. J's African American Institute, and that was for the whole family. And so what she would do is she would bring students in. I was forced to go. I didn't want to go. And so my mother forced me to go. So we would come in and we would learn African American history.
History.
And in that, what she would do, she was so astute and very just incredibly shrewd and sharp. We would learn, so she would let us pick someone in Black history we would learn about. Then there's stuff that we didn't pick, we would learn about when we talked about just the Mali Empire and different things and Africa and all that. And we would pick a person, and as we're picking that person, obviously in African American history, you have this issue of persistence and progression and not giving up. And what she would do is she would say, "You've been studying this individual, so now you have no excuse to be great in Columbia Public Schools." Because what was going on is that you had those. So my mother did not graduate high school; she dropped out. And so because of her dropping out, she did not get her high school diploma. And so as we know, social determinants that usually the child only assumes to the highest level of where that parent went, where that parent left education. My father dropped out the same year my mother dropped out. And so, and he actually wasn't in the home. And so what would happen is we would go and just be passed along. So we wouldn't learn we wouldn't do the little math quizzes, we wouldn't do the reading because we would get embarrassed when we get left behind, but they just pass us along. So you weren't taking a test to go from first to second grade, they just passed you along. Could not read. And so, but then what happens is you start to exhibit behaviors that we call OCD, obsessive defiance disorder, or stuff like that. And they start to deem you as a problem child. And they start to do studies to build prisons off of the fact that you can't read or do math equations and you're embarrassed, but you're exhibiting behavior because you don't know how to say, I need help. And so they just save you for prison, not actually trying to reach you and educate you, or they medicate, or they say you have ADHD or that you need to be medicated. And so then we're teaching people how to have a substance use disorder, not how to learn and to love learning. And so it's just you farm that out. There are studies that have been done by the Department of Corrections out of Florida. There are studies that Florida let the cat out of the bag and said, hey, we're not the only ones doing this. Actually, the rest of the nation's doing this. We just got caught for doing it, but we're doing studies on third and fourth graders of, so we know how many prisons to build down the line because these kids aren't going to learn. They're going to go to prison. They're going to come to us. And this is going to be our financial factor. And so instead of impacting that, we build a system that just ships people to that. Miss J said no. And so she built this house. And so she would have us come to her. The boys would go on Tuesdays. The girls would go on Thursdays. And we would go to her once a week and she would work with us on studying Black history. She made us look her in the eye all the time. I remember I used to always hold my head down and mumble. She said, nope, as soon as we go in, look at me, you have something to say, and I want to know what you have to say. So you're going to look me in my eye and you're going to talk to me clearly. What's your name? Who are you? And what do you have to say? She would do that every day. She wouldn't miss a beat. We would quote the Lord's Prayer. We would sing the national Negroes anthem, the national anthem, the Negroes national anthem. Lift every voice and sing. She would do all, and I will tell you, I know for me, I was not receptive, and she did all of this and so not only did she help my mom get her GED, she helped me to learn to read and to learn to navigate CPS because a lot of the teachers didn't look like me. A lot of teachers didn't understand where I came from. And so to me, I could be doing the same thing as one of my white counterparts, and he would be called mischievous. I would be called a delinquent. And this, she prepared us to walk through that. Not, she didn't change the system. She prepared us to walk through that and to persevere because we needed to get our education. And she said, then you can make a change. And so she would do that. So then she would have family nights where all the family would come together. She would prepare the moms and the dads how to work with their kids. She would take us on trips. We would take on spring break. We would be used to staying at home. We would go. She took us to Atlanta to go to visit where Dr. King was from. We went to so the Sweet Auburn area of town where they have businesses and black businesses. She took us to Memphis where we went to the National Negro Museum. She took us to Diamond, Missouri where we went to. So all these are different trips. She took us to Washington, D.C. This woman wanted to make sure you are going to know that there is life beyond where you are and that people had to persevere and that you can do the same. And she did that as a one-woman show. I mean, her family would help here and there, but she was a one-woman show. And so when I say 4 generations, she impacted my mom. She taught me how to read and persevere through and really instilled a fire in me for civil rights and social justice. And she then, my nephew, my sister's son, she helped him. So he was reading, he went to her, he was in the 7th grade and was reading at a 3rd grade level. He was with her for a year and exceeded. By the time he was done, when he was in 8th grade, he was reading at an 11th grade level and was taking advanced courses just because of the impact of Miss J. And then my niece, my sister, so me and my sister were in the program, then my other sister's daughter. And so you have 4 generations. Excuse me. And then my grandmother, before she passed, she worked with Miss J. And so you have my mom's mom, my mom, me, and then my nieces and nephews who went to Miss J. And my mom is so upset that Miss J is gone because I have a younger niece now who is in 3rd grade going through the same thing. And so you have a 30-year span and we're still having the same issues with a situation. I have an MBA. You cannot be failing at the same rate as a business and think you're going to be around 30 years. It's not going to happen. But somehow we still have these same outworkings with our school system. And so that was Miss J's impact into the school system, was to do a different work. And she brought us into the home on purpose because she said kids need a home to have security, to have a launching pad into their education, not a laboratory or a work floor that teaches them to just be another number. She was phenomenal. I hope
That was about the most exciting and long answer to one question that we've ever had, and I think I see plans for something special about Miss J in the works from your presentation. That's wonderful. Also, your answer about the failures of our school system, even for someone as young as you and others, reminds us of well, to me, the shame that I face if I don't get more involved. So thank you for this challenge. I think we may have other questions on other matters. It's rich topics that you have opened here. I'll ask Herb or Sue to go next.
It's me. I wanted to try to get a little bit of an idea of what the focus of your organization, and I didn't hear a year as to when it started, but as compared, I missed it. As compared to NAACP. And let me say that my husband and I were very active in environmental organizations in addition to political things. And so we understand that you need to have people coming from different directions to try to have different groups and really get the message out. So I'm not criticizing you anyway. I'm complimenting you, but I'd like to know a little bit what the different focus might be that you have.
To that question.
Yes, thank you for that. And so, yeah, this is our inaugural. So in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, this will be our first chapter in this area since it started in 1957. The difference that we will have with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference versus the NAACP, we strive to work deeply together. You'll see us at the NAACP events. We work with Mary Ratliff. We have members that are dual members in both. And yes, Reverend Richardson is he's a member of NAACP. Reverend James Patterson is a member of NAACP. I think he's vice president of NAACP for the Columbia chapter. Reverend Richardson is on the executive board. But our difference is, again, one main is community enrichment. We are going to beat the drum of community enrichment when it comes to accountability and things in the governmental sector. Also, education is going to be a focus. While the NAACP, what we love about the NAACP is that you have this approach to a more of a national understanding and movement. Southern Christian Leadership Conference did not leave the church house. And there are so many people who have yet to be activated that are sitting in the church house pointing their finger at what's wrong, but not being involved and bringing solve. Don't tell me what's wrong. Tell me what you can do to fix it, right? What are you going to do if the kids are, this generation these days, they don't know how to work? Then you create a workforce development program to teach people a work ethic. If not, then stop complaining. Like we have, that's an ethic of Dr. King. If we see an issue and I don't lift my hand to help, how wicked am I if I do not become a solution? And so that's something that we have not left the nature of it. NAACP honors the church, but Southern Christian Leadership Conference is, I mean, this is a letter from Birmingham jail. You can't say these tenets of Christ and you're not doing anything out here to actually be hands and feet of that tenant. So that's going to be more of a niche that we focus in. The other one, quite frankly, is the notion of being able to be the other side of the table. So there are certain people who gravitate to NAACP that do that. Then there are certain people that NAACP does not reach. And we're looking to be the other side of that table to bring those people that necessarily do not understand or for some odd reason don't gravitate to NAACP, but will work with us. And then being able to bridge the gap of unity together so that we can be two different people. It takes two. It's great to have one person at the table, but when Governor Kehoe has two people sitting there, two agencies saying, hey, we have a power source too. We have voters. We have people who are out here willing to work and are working. You need to listen to her. We've done that. We've already done that with some issues here in town. Hey, Mary Ratliff's gonna come visit you, and you ought to listen to her. Or we'll show up too, and we're gonna add to fodder to the fire, and they take the meeting with Mary Ratliff, and then hopefully they work things through. So it's not a scarcity model; it's a unity model. So thank you.
One other question. My husband gave me a date, but that wasn't what I was asking. Is the local chapter, is it officially started, or when did it start?
So we actually started in August, but we are official by state document December.
Okay, great. Thank you for doing this. Thank you. It's much needed, and it's great.
I thought that was a great answer about the emphasis on people in the churches and the power that they can bring to the table. It's a difficult, how can you say it? It's difficult to separate, but when you have to do something, using that is really good. I want to call on Scott Crystal, and DeMarcus, if you don't know Scott already, I think you will get to.
Oh, he does.
Okay.
All righty.
That's my friend.
Really quick. One thing is to mention to everybody that in the chat, Dave Taylor was good enough to put up about for that weekend coming up, links for signing up. But what I'd like to bring up is how people can just regularly get involved. How do they sign up? How do they participate beyond this upcoming weekend? Is there a link that they can go to, or how do you guys do it? And I thank you both for coming here today.
It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invite. And the way people can be involved, so at every event we are signing up members, and so what we end up doing And I give people my information, and I saw in the chat, just got to give a shout out to Dave Taylor here. He's putting gold in the chat. But just you see the Good Dads reference there. If any way people want to be involved, they get in contact with myself, Reverend Richardson, Reverend J.P. Patterson, Charles Stevenson. If they make contact with us, they're in contact with the budding Southern Christian Leadership Conference chapter in Missouri. He also has Sarah Bell's the papers in there. That's a good read as well. But yes, that's how you can get involved. Become a member if this is really stoking a fire of involvement. Become a member. It's super easy. We have membership cards, so we go old school. We were started in 1957, so we have paper cards where we write down the information. You get our information, and then you do get a card. The young people struggle with this because they're like, I need something virtual, and so we do have that for. but you get like a signified card of an SCLC member in the mail, and that comes from the national. But you get one from us, just an informational, just for our local chapter, because we do not want to lose in the shuffle of things our local local constituents, because national maybe have a hang up or something of that nature.
Okay, Suzanne.
Something that you mentioned just briefly, but I want to give more credit to you for, is the ROC. I'm a therapist and I work with people with trauma and addiction, and some clients that have come from incarceration, and that is an amazing program. Amazing, helping them get back into the community. If you would share a little bit more about that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Suzanne. That is, I saw that in the chat. Thank you so much. You're too kind. Labor of love. A lot of credit must go to Dan Hannikin for having the foresight and the bank account to start to help start. I mean, just to be, Dan put a lot of resources. And I remember what he said. He said, I can't build it. I have a desire for it. I need someone who can build this. And so I said, all right, Dan, let's do this. This is part of community enrichment. We can't have folks coming back from incarceration, re-entering society, and not have a help into that. And those that are looking to enter into recovery, or to at least mitigate with substance use disorder, we must have a place that helps, that does not have a judging eye. And I will tell you, Jessica Chambers is the director there. She is fantastic. I love, we call them messengers, trusted messengers. She's has lived experience, came through the ails of substance use disorder and threats of incarceration justice involvement, and now is just helping people change their lives. I will tell you a sad situation. She was going to run for school board, but because she had a felony, they would not allow her to run for school board. So she would have been fantastic. I was taken back, which I'm sure is state statute, but I'm like, my goodness, our president-elect is, I think,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So I just was taken aback, David. I was like, wow, okay. You can run for president, not school board. But yeah, so that's the rock. Anybody, it's a no wrong door entry. It doesn't matter if you don't know up from down and are looking for some assistance in housing. You walk into the rock, they're going to help you. If you don't have to have a substance use disorder or be justice involved. Those are who we want. But anybody can walk in. We've had people who are homeless walk in and they got help, and they were given the right solutions and the advocacy to help them in their journey.
Quickly, ROC, Reentry Opportunity Center. And another question is, your group's got a busy weekend coming up, but will it be participating with the People's Rally on Saturday, the 18th? I'm not sure People's Rally, if that's the appropriate title for that event, but there is something already scheduled for Saturday the 18th. It's probably on the Democratic Party website. I remember seeing it there. So somebody wanted to suggest that, I think.
What time is that, David?
I'd have to look. Does Peter, do you know what time?
It's at 1.
1
1
o'clock. There's the chair of the Democratic Party Central Committee, or Boone County Democratic Party Central Committee, Deb Finley, says 11 o'clock, and it begins where? The People's Rally. Well, it's on the Boone County.
I
The
thought it
flyer
was 1
says 1
o'clock.
o'clock.
1 o'clock.
The flyer says 1 o'clock, and it's at the Boone County Government Courthouse Plaza.
Right. Okay. Well, that's what somebody suggests anyway. We'll share that information if you need it from us.
Yeah, that would be
Next-
fantastic. We'll mobilize people there after, because
Right,
we're done.
some just to let them know what's going on that weekend for you.
Mhm.
I think we have a question from Marie.
Yeah, I have a sort of basic question about this coming weekend's events. There have been previously there have been events sponsored by the city and by the NAACP to mark the weekend. Are those being pulled in with your group, or will those events continue on their own? I'm not finding any information about them as I look.
Yeah, so we will highlight those events at every event we do through the weekend. As I mentioned, we are partnering deeply with NAACP, and so we will definitely highlight that Monday. Matter of fact, I think I'm slated to help with the motorcade.
Yeah.
So Pam Harden has already told me she wants. So we work deeply with them. We will highlight them, and then we also will highlight the Monday night, the city program that they do, the march from I think it's the Armory to St. Luke and all that, if that's what they're doing. But we will highlight
I'm
that.
just baffled because there's nothing on the city calendar and I don't know how to find out information about the end.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to get, Marie.
Yeah.
It is hard to get that information. We struggle every year on finding out, and you might find it like a couple days before. The city struggles with the information sourcing, so it's not just you.
Okay, thank you for your help.
Dave Taylor just put up the information on the walk. Again, he finds things quickly and gets them posted. So I'm copying everything as he goes. This is pretty rich today. Let's see. Diversity breakfast. I suppose you'll play a role. That's on the 25th?
29th, I believe.
29th. Sorry, 29th, of course.
Diversity breakfast, and we have not been contacted to play a role with that. I've gone for the last last 3 years and been there, but yeah, we have not been contacted on that, but I'm sure that'll be a great occurrence.
Well, I hope they can at least accept an announcement or a report on your organizational activities the weekend before. That would be a good thing. Not that I'm going to try to run that breakfast. I will be there. But I have trouble running this little group here. So
You're doing a great job, David.
thank you. I just started, so withhold your praise. Who else do we have? I think we've got most of the chat questions.
Pam, I think, has a hand up in the.
I want
Yes,
to know
Pam.
about the Good Dads group. What do you do? The Good Dads group.
Oh, Good Dads. That is one of my heartbeats. Good Dads. So what we do is we help dads whether they are at risk or just need support and being involved with their children. And our at-risk dads are those who are, as Suzanne mentioned, those who are who are recovering from substance use. And so chances are they have been outside of the home, or those coming back, returning citizens from incarceration. So obviously they have been outside the home. We work with them with co-parenting. We work with them on interpersonal relationship and skill on how to get involved with their kids' life, because we have the evidence-based data and understanding that when a father is not involved with their children, we had the L's of 7 times more likely to have criminogenic activity and be involved with the justice system, 6 times more likely to have a substance use disorder, 8 times more likely to not graduate from high school. I mean, all these determinants are involved when there is not a father involved. They cured obsessive defiance disorder by getting fathers, and this is on with males and females, getting fathers involved with the children. They've cured it. You usually have to, they've been heavily medicating for this, and they've cured it with father involvement. This research is there. And so this is preventative, and I love prevention, love prevention. Frederick Douglass said it's better to build strong children than repair broken men. And so I love prevention where we can stave off. What happens if we don't have a DOC number? We don't have a felony, right? And we're able to work and be productive and bring community enrichment that way. So that's what Good Dads does. We do it by having curriculums for our fathers. We do Good Dads 2.0. The website's in the chat. We have a lot on our website. We have podcasts, all that. We do trainings. We have facilitators. Reverend Richardson, facilitator. He had a class graduate recently. It's a fantastic thing. Then we do strong schools. And so we work with the dad before school program. We were going to have one today, got canceled, obviously, because of the precipitation, but it's going to go next week at West Boulevard Elementary. Then we'll have one the following week at Alpha Hart Lewis Elementary, where dads just come in before school, donuts, coffee, and we have an exercise, a pro-social activity that they do with their kids. And then hopefully this increases we're struggling right now with CPS with our with our attendance. Hopefully this increases attendance. If dad and student are there, hopefully that student stays for school.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what Good Dads does in a nutshell. It's a heartbeat for me because it's a preventative measure into some of the community ills that we see.
Thank you.
Another question from Sue, perhaps, or maybe Herb.
I want to thank you very much for rescuing the name of an important teacher in this town from oblivion she does not deserve. All too many of the important figures over the last several generations who have been heroes and risk takers in the fight for greater equality are forgotten.
Yeah.
I mention one more, as I often do, because she's special to me, Dorothy Ham, who was crucial to the integration of first effective integration of schools in the state of Virginia. The first district, Herwood Marshall was involved in the case, was brought by Prince Edward County, and it failed because although it was one of the 5 cases which were decided in what's named collectively as Brown versus Board of Education, state of Virginia closed all public schools in Prince Edward County in order to avoid integration. We brought suit after suit in ensuing years. Some of the drafts treatises were worked out in my living room. And eventually, but at the core of this was Dorothy Ham, a name that is long forgotten, a minor postal employee in the headquarters in Washington, D.C., who lent her name and that of their children. And when we succeeded in 1959, she had instilled courage in 2 of them to be among the 6 who joined my high school in Arlington, Virginia, among 2,700 whiteys. She doesn't deserve to be forgotten. And the work that you do to rescue some of these names and other groups and organizations elsewhere, I think will be deserving for history.
Wow, thank you for that, Herb. That is that means a lot. And I took her name down because I will look her up. And Columbia will hear from her if we have anything to do with it.
Well, I think my favorite is Fannie Lou Hamer, but I think everybody knows who she is. and I do want to point out while we're see if there's another question. About a year ago, we had the most because we had some time after a meeting, we just had this informal discussion of how people our age remember Martin Luther King Jr. And I wish you could have been there, both of you, to hear that, because I was so amazed by that discussion. It was so various, different. You know, there was a lot to laugh and cry about. But that was just our little group, and so much to learn. So bringing the SCLC to my town just really brings a tear to the eye. We have from our past president or from Mary Jo a question.
It's for
now.
Mary Jo.
It's just Mary Jo. I just want to say how happy I am that you're recognizing Wina Fay, because she really did a lot of work in this community, and she did it in a way that was acceptable to any person of any complexion. And I just think a lot of her work.
And she was our neighbor in West Ash.
She was our neighbor.
And Mary Jo, you bring up a great point. The other thing of the ethic, and we see this in other organizations, but the ethic of the SCLC was we must have white and black working,
Yeah.
living, eating,
Yes.
breathing together. That was a strong ethic of Dr. I mean, it wasn't a dream, right? It's a strong ethic. If we don't have both doing, then we failed. And Dr. King,
And Wina Fay did that better than anybody is currently doing it. I think she was just really a superior
yes, she did. Yes,
and
she
a good
did.
neighbor. But
Some of these people I'm related to just because I'm born and raised, both of us, born and raised here in Columbia, Missouri. And so Wanda Faye's a cousin, David. If you're from Old Columbia and you're black, you're probably related. Our grandparents would like chase us around. We couldn't date anybody because we were related.
Like small towns. Maybe one more question, Alice?
Not really a question, not really a question. I was just going to suggest that you weigh in and keep track of the school board race. We do have at least one candidate, a person of color who's, you probably know, who's running. We usually have a very conservative one or two candidates, so it's really important who we elect to the school board, as I'm sure you would agree. So I'm just going to suggest you weigh in and help where you can, and come to maybe some of the NACP usually has a school board candidate session, and we do too. So I just wanted to put in that remark, because those election, as well as mayor, the elections for April are extremely important to the community. So I hope your organization's able to weigh in on those.
Yes, and we'll have a form as well. I believe we're planning in February or March, but we'll have a forum for school board and mayor and council.
What I want to suggest is you might work with NACP on it. Those candidates have like 12, 15 forums, and that's pretty overwhelming. So if we can come together on some of the forums, it could have greater turnout and be not so hard on the candidates.
That's really good feedback, Alice. Thank you for that. We'll put a bug in Mary's ear and see if we can't do something joint. That's great insight there, because they do have a ton of forums. We helped with Cobbins. We were definitely supporters of when he ran, and you are exactly right. And they're unforgiving if you miss one. So
Right, it's true. Yeah, it's funny. I think there are so many. And then sometimes people claim that they're not enough, or that maybe they're just not organized, or the calendar's not available as it should be. We try to help with that, but in our announcements to keep the calendars straight for other people's forums on candidates when we can. But I don't think anybody does a good enough job on that. Those are the things that you'll be diving into, I think, pretty quickly. I think we have to come to an end unless there's something else that you want to say. It's such a pleasure that you brought your president, Reverend Richardson, with you today. Did he have anything more he wanted to say? about before we end today?
No, not really. Just so you know, I'm just a kid. I grew up in the county. Unlike DeMarcus, he grew up in the city. I grew up on the east side, out in the El Chaparral area, Harg area, over in that area. For those who don't know, I'm the grandson of George Williams, who had his own trash business out on the east side. And so I kind of grew up with a different view of Columbia than what DeMarcus did, just because it's different living in the county than it is in the city. And so we had different issues. I had to deal with being the only Black family in an all-white school.
Yeah.
Those are some things I had to deal with, but I had a principal who was Donna Dodge, who made sure that us Black students was doing what we were doing. So I just love Mrs. Dodge as well too. But I'm just happy to be a part of what's going on. Again, I'm from Columbia. I want to make sure that the foundation that our ancestors have left here can continue on even past us and for the next generation behind us. And I thank you all for allowing us for this time. And you all will be hearing from us, I assure you.
Well, I'm not a Colombian at all.
Uh-oh, I think we lost David. DeMarcus, if you could you tell us again what's going on this weekend and where we would go to attend? And what are there tickets and prices and all that?
Yes, so the only ticketed event is the banquet on Saturday night, and that starts at 6 p.m., receptions at 5. But the other events are free and open to the public, to anyone to attend. Friday night, we start at, we're saying on the flyer it says 6:57, playing off of 1957 when the organization was started. It starts at 7. At Progressive Missionary Baptist Church, it'll be a musical, and it'll just be an opening night. And we'll explain a little bit of the weekend. Then Saturday will be the conference. Saturday morning, we'll do a conference setting. We talked about just the breakouts. And then we'll do the banquet Saturday evening, where that'll be the award ceremony. The community awards is what we're tasking it. And then Sunday will be the culmination of everything at Log Providence at 2:30.
That's community-wide service.
Yeah, and that's everybody's welcome to that. Everyone's welcome to the lunch. Everyone's welcome to the service. And if you need tickets or anything, contact myself. I know Scott has my contact. I know Kathy has my contact as well. Feel free to share that. Contact myself, Reverend Richardson. We can get you tickets to the banquet if you like, but we can also get you the flyers to the events that are not ticketed. The other thing I'll say this, so just a couple of facts. Mary Ellen Pleasant. Look her up. She's another woman that's unsung, who was huge when we talk about an abolitionist and was able to do things in our community. She ended up moving to California, but this was in the late 1800s, around the Civil War, so she's no longer living there. But Mary Ellen Pleasant, fantastic, phenomenal woman, unsung hero. And then Coretta Scott King's sister lived in Columbia, and the Kings would come to Columbia regularly. I did not know that until I was talking to Reverend David Ballinger. So he was excited that we were doing this, and he said, "Hey, the Kings have history here," and so that was really exciting to know. She went to Second Baptist.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good now.
Okay. Well, as you can tell, this is a continuing discussion, but I think we better call it a day today, give you time to get all that great work going that is ahead of you. Pretty exciting. As a historian, I'm very excited about the history just you two bring to us today. And it's great for our city and for our community. Wonderful start to this season, which is really so important. Thank our guests very much today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for what you all do. We really appreciate you, and hope you well in the new year. And anything we can do to be of help or assistance, let us know.
We'll be in touch. Thank you. We'll have a short business meeting and then executive officer meeting. Everyone is invited